None could have predicted that a single gunshot would snowball into one of the deadliest wars in history. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo in 1914 set off a chain reaction that would engulf the world in conflict. This seemingly isolated event was the spark that ignited a powder keg of tensions that had been building for years. Welcome to a whirlwind tour of World War I, the Great War that raged from 1914 to 1918. This war was unlike any other before it, involving nations from across the globe and introducing new forms of warfare that would change the face of battle forever. This colossal struggle saw over 37 million casualties, both military and civilian. The scale of the devastation was unprecedented, with entire towns and cities reduced to rubble and millions of lives forever altered. So, what lit the fuse? The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was the spark that set off the explosion. But this was just the beginning. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was the spark. Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb nationalist, fired the shots that killed the Archduke and his wife Sophie. This act of violence was rooted in deep-seated political and ethnic tensions in the Balkans. But beneath that, a powder keg of imperialism, nationalism, and a tangled web of alliances was ready to blow. The major powers of Europe had been building up their military forces and forming alliances in a bid to protect their interests and expand their empires. This created a highly volatile situation where any small conflict had the potential to escalate into a full-scale war. The war's early days saw frantic clashes like the Battle of the Frontiers and the Battle of the Marne. These battles were characterized by rapid movements and high casualties as both sides tried to gain the upper hand. The Battle of the Marne, in particular, was a turning point that halted the German advance into France and set the stage for a prolonged and grueling conflict. But it was the grueling battles of Verdun and the Somme in 1916 that truly showcased the war's brutal nature. These battles were fought over months, with soldiers enduring horrific conditions in the trenches. The Battle of Verdun became a symbol of French determination and sacrifice, while the Battle of the Somme highlighted the devastating impact of modern weaponry, including machine guns and artillery. Amidst the chaos, the Russian Revolution erupted in 1917, toppling the Tsar and shaking the Eastern Front. The revolution was driven by widespread discontent with the war and the suffering it caused. The abdication of Tsar Nicholas II marked the end of centuries of imperial rule in Russia and led to the rise of the Bolsheviks, who would eventually establish a communist government. That same year, the United States entered the fray, tipping the scales in favor of the Allies. President Woodrow Wilson had initially sought to keep the US out of the conflict, but a series of events, including the sinking of the Lusitania and the Zimmermann telegram, pushed the nation into war. The arrival of fresh American troops provided a much-needed boost to the weary Allied forces. Finally, in 1918, the armistice was signed, leading to the Treaty of Versailles. The armistice brought an end to the fighting on the Western Front, but the peace process was fraught with challenges. The Treaty of Versailles imposed harsh penalties on Germany, including significant territorial losses and reparations payments. These terms would sow the seeds of resentment and economic hardship that would later contribute to the rise of Adolf Hitler and the outbreak of World War II. The war reshaped the world map, dismantling empires and giving rise to new powers like the USA and the USSR. The Austro-Hungarian and Ottoman empires were among those that collapsed, leading to the creation of new nations in Europe and the Middle East. The United States emerged as a global power, while the Soviet Union began to establish itself as a major player on the world stage. The League of Nations was created in a bid to prevent future conflicts, but as we know, the seeds of World War II were already sown. The League was the brainchild of President Wilson, who envisioned it as a forum for resolving international disputes peacefully. However, the League struggled to enforce its decisions and lacked the support of key nations, including the United States, which never joined. And there you have it, a whirlwind overview of World War I. This conflict changed the course of history, leaving a legacy that continues to shape our world today. The lessons learned from the Great War are still relevant as we strive to build a more peaceful and just global community. Want to dive deeper into a specific battle or event? Let us know in the comments. Whether it's the strategies employed in the trenches, the impact of new technologies, or the personal stories of those who lived through the war, there's always more to explore and understand about this pivotal period in history.